Everybody, good
We're not
morning.
there yet.
Good morning, coffee moaners. Good morning. We
can't have it like that.
We are already having an argument because
if you're listening, it's because we've having to frame us in the bottom of shot because Nadia's boobs look big, she says. So that's how we're going to have it.
Look, it's
They're
all
boobs.
You can see. No, but just go to here.
Yeah, but I can't. There's no zoom in perspective.
All right, I'll lean
just
like
lean
this.
in. Lean
right.
in. Bloody hell! You happy with your glasses? You're not even wearing them.
Thank you. You just had a little strop off. You didn't see me stormed off.
Morning, everyone.
Did you flounce out?
Mark has made a boo-boo. What's that? What's the boo-boo?
Morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Now, before we go any further, I just want to say, last night I posted a video on Gaza and then I did a story saying that I was going to answer everyone that commented, thinking like, I don't know, 9 or 10 people would comment, but there has been a lot of comments and I am going to answer them all. I think I'm about halfway through, but I will be doing that through the day today. So please don't think I said that and I'm not going to do it, Sam.
Just on that note, I had a listen to it last night, and it's an incredibly important, moving, and thought-provoking chat. And I think it's a much needed kind of emotion. I find myself, the way we all have different ways of managing how we deal with the trauma and the crisis. And then there's the literal stuff that's happening. And then one has to try and contend with the lying, the fabrications, the propaganda, the gaslighting and everything else. And then that just kind of leads you up a different garden path. I like to try and deal with stuff in a sort of literal, practical sense that then becomes emotional. Whereas I thought what was really important last night was I think many of us just need to feel like we're connecting emotionally in the frustration.
Do you know what? Reading the comments, Mark, helped me so much because people were saying to me as well, oh, I don't feel I can talk to people.
Yeah,
and
so
I don't
many people
feel,
on their own.
And so that really healed me back again. It's that wonderful thing, isn't it? That when you share back and forth, like we'll say to the girls, problem shared is problem halved. And people's comments back have just really been lovely. And Michelle, thank you for your beautiful messages this morning.
Yeah, so I'm just making a note of Gemma C. It's your birthday. All of that stuff will happen at the end, guys. So Gemma, I hope you have a lovely day, and we will do your birthday at the end.
So today,
in terms of conversation, just quickly, just a little bit of house rules. Let's try and keep the conversation on topic. Let's try and sort of stay on what we're talking about. Obviously, we pop the live up half an hour before for you all to kind of catch up with each other. Not always. Obviously, but maybe not hellos and welcomes and sort of what you've been up to today.
And especially today, because we are going to be talking about this hugely traumatic birth that Sam,
Louise Thompson
has written about today, and we have asked people and on Instagram to share some of their stories. So it'd be really nice to just have a clear run and look at those so that we can read out as many comments as we can.
Gaza, I'm going to be doing a kind of, this sounds like an awful way of describing it, but I want to do the kind of, I want us to try and do like the top 5 stories that are emanating out of it, sort of, if not every day, then most days, because every day there is a slow encroachment of horror, or there's a strong, obvious fast encroachment of horror, and it's just not getting reported. And I just want to briefly say something before we get into everything we're going to talk about now. I have a really sinister feeling about the mainstream media's sudden appetite for Ukrainian content. This isn't to say that what's happening in Ukraine and Russia isn't serious. There's no two ways about it. Putin will have been operating, out in the shadows.
He will have loved the distraction.
The distraction has been perfect for him. But isn't it interesting? I think the distraction of Israel has been perfect for him. And I've got a funny feeling the distraction of Ukraine will be perfect for Israel and the Americans.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that Blinken is now flying over there and they're advocating support. There's even a huge conflict, potential issue developing with Georgia.
But we're going to talk about that later.
No. But all of this, I just want to say, all of that kind of stuff is concerning, and I want to talk about that later. But yeah, so we will be.
That'll be a separate video that Mark will do.
So we're going to be talking about maternal mental health horror. This is a story around Louise Thompson. Nadia's going to talk about. We're going to talk about the so-called or suggested. The mainstream media, all the front pages are on sex education ban for under 9s in our schools. I want to tell you how it's a non-story. It's just a Tory racketeering story. We're going to talk about the King Charles's portrait. A lot of people are seeing
Which
red.
Mark's banned me from seeing because he wanted me to see it for the first time here.
And a lot of people are seeing red over that. And and we're going to mention briefly, Philip Schofield has posted his first Instagram
I didn't know. I don't know what that is. So
and we're going to show you that too.
Not a fan at all.
Yeah.
Not a fan of the man.
So let's talk about Louise Thompson. Tell us about Louise.
Okay, so bear with me, guys, because this was an incredibly long article in the Times this morning, and as I said, we've had a batshit crazy morning. I'm going to be looking at my phone a bit
because I had to. Of Louise.
I had to screenshot some things. Now,
so this is Louise Thompson.
So this is Louise Thompson. You might know her from Made in Chelsea. Many of you know her adorable brother Sam Thompson, who we had on Loose Men. Kay and I did Loose Men with both him and Johannes a few weeks ago.
He won I'm a Celeb, right?
One I'm a Celeb, lovely guy. I used to watch Made in Chelsea in the days they were in, and I actually really liked both.
I liked it actually.
I like both of them actually. And so
it's happening now, Sarah D.
What?
Have I missed maternal mental health?
It's happening now.
Literally starting now.
So she has written a book called Lucky, which I have already ordered. I'm going to be reading that. Now, this is so weird because after yesterday talking about trigger warnings and whether they are necessary, I do think it is necessary to give a trigger warning before this conversation because I've never heard anything like it. I mean, over the years, I've spoken to so many women about their births, and we all love to talk about our births, don't we? And it gets to a point where we think we can't talk about them anymore because everybody's bored, but we all want to because it's such an enormous thing. I mean, right from the second that you conceive and you know you've conceived, you're thinking about that. Our bodies are the most extraordinary things, aren't they? I mean, we just do other things while we're growing brains and livers and kidneys and toenails and network of nerves. Our bodies are incredible, and we also know our bodies, many of us, very, very well. And the reason I'm saying that is Louise Thompson knew her body very, very well, and knew that she had a very, very small, narrow pelvis. Now, I'm actually going to reverse on something that I've said many, many times, and I now feel quite ashamed about it because I feel like I was a bit gung-ho with an opinion I had. Because a couple of years ago, I discovered that supposedly any woman can choose the birth they want as long as they show that they are informed. So if everybody wants a cesarean, everybody can have a cesarean. And I've always, like on the times I've spoken about it on Instagram, I thought, well, I think that's a terrible idea. Because a cesarean is a major operation. Our bodies are made to give birth. Unless there's a real medical reason for it, why would you have it? It's a huge cost to the NHS. You're much longer unable to move around and everything. It's a major operation. I was actually in one with Judy Love a couple of months ago, and it was, it's a big deal. But Louise Thompson wanted a cesarean. Now, by the rules and regulations, she should have been given a cesarean, right? She was very, very sort of nervous running up to her birth. She was then given, eventually, a place where she could have a cesarean 2 weeks after her due date, right? So nobody had listened to her up until that point. Right. And then it was in a hospital in Isleworth that she didn't know and was far away. So she decided, she was already past her due date. Really nervous time, isn't it? So she was like, okay, well, I'll stick with my hospital and I will have a vaginal birth. It's a horror story. It's a total horror story. What she went through, I cannot believe she is still standing, honest to God. She nearly died a couple of times. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't want to frighten people. And remember, this is rare. The results of this hugely traumatic birth, she nearly died, a baby nearly died, she hemorrhaged, and let's not forget her poor partner who was witnessing this and had to keep saying to her throughout, you're not going to die, you're not going to die. God. Can you imagine that? God. 3 hours they were working on her with no general anaesthetic, a rummaging around, no eye contact, no explanation, petrifying. As far as I'm concerned, she's a survivor of torture. That's the way I would look at that. Because having had some really difficult things in my first birth, I described myself as a survivor of torture, simple as that. Anyway, so that's all I'm going to say about the birth. It's up to you if you want to look more into that.
Can I just ask a question just briefly, just at this point? Because I think it's really important that we did say after our conversation about trigger warning. I think that was very much a conversation about fiction and all that. And the trigger warning around this, I kind of, as we were stepping towards this story and you were talking about it, I was like, oh God, we need to be careful. Because I do know we've talked about a couple of other things in the past. And, obviously people here who are either pregnant or have just become new mums and what have you. It's a very sensitive and tender subject that one needs to step carefully around. But I think the thing that strikes me about it is there. I just want to ask you, as a mum amongst mums, is there a kind of conspiracy of silence amongst women, though, that it's kind of frowned upon to talk about the bad
Dina.
stuff? No, absolutely. But would you
Dina, you told me everything. No. It's a good question.
But is there a conspiracy of silence more generally around, like, even so, let me just finish. So even like around our children, daughters, we've got all daughters. Is it about just selling only the positives, or is it about actually selling them the reality of it?
No, I think that you will hear completely split down the middle. Some women saying, I remember one woman years ago saying to me, I feel so let down that nobody told me how this was going to be. But then I spoke to many women that said, I wish everyone would stop telling me about the trauma of birth because I'm in a total state. Okay. So that's why I'm not saying all the things that happened. It's important for the rest part of the story, for the mental health, that we explain some of it. But that's up to you because it's in the papers today. You can buy her book.
Well, can I just read Sarah D's thing, because it might speak to what you're about to share with us about Louise. Sarah D says, so many people still think maternal mental health issues means depression, but there's such a huge umbrella. OCD, this is really interesting. OCD, acute anxiety, psychosis, PTSD. More needs to be said on this.
Well, read her story, because she almost has all of those things. So as a result, I'm just reading a bit here from her article. As a result of the trauma, Leo's survival was uncertain, her baby. So he was taken straight to intensive care unit. He pulled through, but as a result of the trauma, Thompson felt no bond. This is from the article, no love. It would take months for this to develop. We say too easily, postnatal depression, She's gone through all of that, and then she has a baby that she has to keep alive, that she feels nothing for. Right. And with that, because I've spoken to many women who have postnatal depression, comes all the shame and the guilt and the own self-victim blaming. I had some of that, tiny, and it was unbearable. So I can't imagine what it's like.
What do you mean victim blaming? In terms of that you're not good enough?
I should have. What was wrong with me? One of the first things I said after my hugely traumatic, difficult birth with Maddie, nothing like this.
It was hugely traumatic.
It was traumatic. I was like, why was I so shit? Why was I so rubbish? I remember sobbing on the phone to my homeopath about
that. But that really speaks to the idea that as a mum or a mum-to-be or going through pregnancy, there's a sort of performative element to it. Are you going to perform?
We all have expectations, I think, don't we, of who we're going to be and how we're going to be. So she felt, no, this would take months. It was the beginning of her PTSD, which speaks to that.
Yes, Sarah.
Every area of her life, compounded by depression, dissociation, and thoughts of suicide. This girl has been through it. She has seriously been through it. She's very bravely today. There are photos of her with her stoma bag, because what happened as a result of one of the drugs, whether it was the antipsychotic or the antidepressant, I don't know, triggered her ulcerative colitis. So she was in agony.
Wow.
And she's really, really open, because she says it's really important to be. She's big friends with Bell Babe, Deborah.
Oh, yes.
So she was literally pouring with blood from her bum. This is in the thing. This is her saying this. So in the end, she was begging for the stoma bag. So, and over the last couple of years, the trauma of not being cared for, her mental health, like she was offered a place. So she couldn't see a specialist for 12 weeks. 12 weeks. So you think about the knock-on effect of that.
I was saying, I was left to deal with it now after no support.
Sweetheart,
I'm popping up comments as we go.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's just an unbearable thought. So you're in your very, very darkest place. She had depression, disassociation, psychotic feelings, suicide, and she's told, waiting list 12 weeks, right? So if you think about that baby as well, for when women are like, that relationship that is so important, why is not more money given to this? Because the knock-on effects that go on for ages. And she said, eventually her mother came in and actually paid for psychiatric care, going back to lucky, like she says, I'm lucky. And she said, she goes, I cannot tell you the amount of money that's cost both her and her mum to get her to where she is today. She says, and when I think of people that haven't got a penny to spend, or a single mum, or no support, she said she had quite a cool relationship with her mother up until this happened. And then her and her mother completely bonded. She said her mum would sit for days just stroking her arm. She would scream in pain. And I read that. She goes, mental pain. She would be screaming in agony. I am so impressed with this woman for sharing this, because she does have a voice, she does have a platform, she's knocking down her brand stuff. Like she said, I'm the Instagram photos that we saw of the perfect house was an absolute nightmare because there was all this building stuff. All of this stuff. Wow. It's I want to meet her. Wow. I want to talk to her.
So this is the ultimate Instagram versus reality baby shower type situation.
She was then eventually offered a place somewhere. And I am sort of paraphrasing, it's quite difficult. If I get anything wrong, forgive me. But she had to take her baby. And this line broke my heart because she said,
take a baby where, sorry? Take a baby
to a unit that would help her. She said, but they said I had to take the baby. And the baby was the thing that I couldn't. Because she was having, and Denise Welsh talks brilliantly in her book about that dissociative postnatal depression where the baby is, it's just.
Would you, the dissociative depressive, the sort of, if you like, you've both got you've had the umbilical cord cut, but then there is this huge societal pressure, isn't there, on the filial maternal bond to be restruck. It's almost quite a symbolic moment. You cut the umbilical cord, and yet the umbilical cord of emotional connection is almost meant to be stronger than that. I wonder, the pressure of that, the pressure and the onus on that being right and successful when, as you say, you're feeling wobbly and you're feeling more than wobbly.
Destroyed. She was destroyed. I mean, the thing is, Mark,
it's possibly your enemy.
Imagine
you're feeling the baby
3 hours, nobody's looking at her, nobody's talking to her. They have since admitted the hospital that they let her down. Nobody's admitting that. And then, so you've had that unbelievable trauma, thinking you're lying on the operating table for 3 hours, your baby's been taken away, and then you're not given any mental health care. And she says here, so she was given very strong tablets, mental health tablets, which led, because that triggered the ulcerative colitis. And then she got a diagnosis of autoimmune disease, lupus. Wow. So where are you saving the money, NHS? Sure. Where are you saving it? These women, must be given the care at the beginning when they're going into a postnatal mental health crisis. It is going to save you money down the line. If you can't think of the human beings, if you can't think of what their trauma that they're going through, think about the money. Because it'll cost you less in the long run. 30,000 women need this kind of care.
There's always, just playing devil's advocate for a minute on that, and not in a sort of, I'm not being purposefully devil, but there is always an argument for so many different areas of research, and there's always a demand in so many different areas for more money here. There'll never be enough money for anything. Do you not think what this speaks to more is a societal lack of prioritizing, or lack of emphasis, or lack of acknowledgement as to what women are going through? I mean, Good Ship Lollipop, you've just said, yes, it's a tough thing to go through, but it's actually we're well serviced comparatively to the rest of the world.
That's not good enough.
No, it's not good enough. But I suppose,
we're one of the richest countries in the world.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't necessarily know whether some of these things are always about obviously everything's funding when it's coming through the NHS, but I also think it's about education and it's about attitude, and I think it's about removing the stigma around being able to talk about this stuff. And as you just described about when you had Maddie, that feeling of failure, that feeling of shame, and then the desire to hide. And I am imagining that also, I've seen a couple of comments. I lost one. Someone said, here we go. Look, I found it. Anna Kite. I had undiagnosed postnatal anxiety. My son is 9, and I've only recently had therapy for anxiety, which my therapist believes was caused by the trauma of my birth. But I was only checked for depression.
Exactly.
How many mental health conditions for women are just ignored as part of the maternal complex maternal kind of situation. It's
if say she'd been like tortured and thrown out of the torture room and said, "Oh, come on, just get on with it. Oh, sorry, we'll see you in 12 weeks." Everyone would be going,
No,
what? It's because from day one, as women, when you first get your first period pain, you're told not to show it, to just smile, to get on. And this is why women are woefully let down within the NHS and have been all the way along. And God help you if you're of another nationality as well, because then it's even worse. And shut up, put up, don't moan, don't complain. And the knock-on effect can be
Sarah
disastrous.
D. I had a traumatic birth with my first child, then had C-section with my section, as I was so scared, but it's still the state of my mental health after that scares me more.
Yeah, because it look, when you're in a mental health crisis, it doesn't just dissolve away, does it? You learn how to cover up, to suppress, and with a really extreme case like Lucy's or Denise Welsh's, where Denise Welsh actually ended up in a psychiatric hospital. They were ignored. So often you hear them we know our bodies, we know our minds. Listen to us, doctors.
There's a lot of comments coming through. I just want to read some more.
Yeah, I'll shut up now.
No,
because I really want to hear from people.
Akhtar, I didn't bond with my son until 6 months on. I can't get rid of the guilt I feel, but 19 months on, I now understand that it wasn't my fault. I was just let down. Hannah Liebschutz, it's just such rubbish to expect women to deal with childbirth because it has happened for centuries. Women have died from childbirth in the past.
I think when those sentences are dreamt up, they have to be dreamt up by men. They have to be. I mean, the whole gynecological thingy is all set up for men to get the babies out quicker. It's men.
And Anna Marie Shellard, this poor woman's story is very close to our hearts as a family. My sister was forgotten about last year and nearly died after hemorrhaging alone in her maternity room. She is now on antidepressants.
Oh, my God. Anne Marie, I'm so sorry. Well,
Joe Marshall.
You know what?
So many people here have gone through difficulties.
Keep on keeping on. Because it's the people that shout the loudest that get. She might need to shift her antidepressant. I remember when Mark was diagnosed with bipolar, the psychiatrist said there that many people's antidepressants should be changed after 6 months, shouldn't they? And he said that they just keep getting the same prescription back for the GP. So if she's still not feeling right, it's okay to speak up, It's okay.
And again, not giving any medical advice whatsoever. Also, the danger with some kind of these antidepressive kind of drugs is that they actually end up bringing about the things that they aim to remove if you're not taken off them after a certain amount of time.
She's really unhappy with what happened with her with the medication. So shout for yourself.
Bonnie Delaney, that's true. Now you read stats for other ethnicities, especially black women. Absolutely
Awful.
Right. It needs to be stressed. I just want to. I'm pulling up this comment because it kind of does lead us, and we kind of.
I'm just looking for some comments from my Instagram. I'm not being rude.
Okay. No, I was just going to say that they don't educate you. This kind of nibbles at the edges of sex education. Actually, we're going to talk about it in a minute. Victoria Mill says they don't educate you on any of this either before giving birth. It's interesting, isn't it?
But it is like Mark said. What's the balance? Like when my girls ask me. And they go, "Oh, Mum, is it really that awful?" There's one of my beautiful girls.
We've just had hang on, something's just happened with the Wi-Fi. It's literally. No, it's still live at the moment. So Michelle? It's still live.
Can they hear us?
It's StreamYard. We've just lost. I'm just going to...
I wonder if there's any way if they can tell if they can hear us.
Let me just see if I can leave.
I'm just going to be reading some of these comments. What's I'm going to do?
Leave the studio. No, guys. Are we back? I think we might be back.
Can I sit on here?
You'll have to come out, update.
Okay, so there they are. Hi guys, thanks for bearing with us. I think it was a solar flare.
We are back.
Because now I know what a solar flare is. I keep using it all the time. So I just want to read out some of the comments on Instagram because I asked people to. I won't read out anyone's name. What was that? So emergency C-section under general. When I woke up, no one spoke to me or told me what happened. This is what Louise says. They were working. They didn't say a word. She said, I didn't even get eye contact. That is petrifying. Imagine that, Mark. Imagine. As women, we tend to go, oh, right, because this kind of thing is normal for us to hear, isn't it?
But I've got a photograph here of her with her. Is that her stoma?
Yeah. NHS RN was told cancer treatment shouldn't affect fertility. Now I'm in early menopause. Oh, sweetheart. No aftercare after my placental abruption. They left a hole in my C-section. I have prolapse. NHS, no help. Another one had low-lying placenta, very low lying. NHS refused to do C-section, then had major placental abruption. Oh my God. Placenta abruption is so scary. Wow. I work with the NHS and the managers on the whole are bullies who all stick together.
Wow.
Waiting, another one, Sophia, waiting far too long to see a psychologist. Wow, 12-week wait, it seems. I'm going to try and see if I can get Louise to come and do a chat with us on here. We could do a StreamYard with her because I think it would be.
And I mean, you know, I think the tail off of this whole thing, of course, it affects partners too. It's like when we've talked about things like miscarriage. You know, the implications are obviously not as immediate or physical for the partner of someone who's going through these. But I tell you what, I can well imagine that huge numbers of relationships have fallen apart due to an inability to name, identify, diagnose, understand, comprehend, or
she talks about the absolute. She says, "I'm not angry, even though this all happened. I'm not angry." She said, "But my partner is. He's filled with rage. Right. You know, because he took the baby and was looking after."
No. But I'm talking about relationships that don't understand. You know, so how many relationships are labouring, as we've talked a lot about, the hidden symptoms of menopause? Right. And how could those relationships have been solved and rectified? And how many relationships after birth? It's not just a sort of, you know, everyone expects there to be a shift and a change in the relationship, but how much gets hidden, you know?
Well, that's what I was going to say. She talks about how awful it was for her partner. And of course, it will have been awful for him, but it's so awful for her that I imagine that it would have been very difficult for him to find a place with his own mental health. And that's the other important part, is that people can, I mean, they're very strong, but in many relationships, can bring about the end of a relationship because two people in such pain and not being able to.
And also, I think, unfortunately, what can often, the dynamic that can creep into, I think, a relationship in these moments is such sort of misunderstandings and confusions and misreadings can creep in, that actually the very person who's the other person that should share in your struggle becomes enemy numero uno, because you feel that there's an insensitivity, or, you know, so stepping back can be read as not caring, and stepping forward can be seen as getting sort of too involved or misunderstanding and not understanding enough. It's an incredibly fraught thing, which I do think leads us to the sex education story.
Thanks. Sophia saying thank you for reading out my message about psychologists. And I really, really pray you do get to see one soon. And you know what? Knock doors down. You know, beg.
So in terms of education, obviously no one is suggesting that 9-year-olds in any way going to be able to learn or be told about the difficulties of childbirth. But the big story in all of the
can I just say quickly, thank you so much for everybody that shared there, because this is a really big thing in a person's life. So we really appreciate it. Sorry,
and the comments are still coming through. And as we've said, we're going to start doing this thing. Do keep posting your comments underneath Coffee Moaning. We're going to be doing a little kind of pull together of some of the comments to chew over and share and discuss.
I think it might be nice, actually, for me to do, like, if you want a comment that didn't get read, put it under here. And I think we'll do a separate one just on trauma, childbirth, reading out comments.
Absolutely. So, so just moving on to what's in the papers today in terms of headlines. Well, the big headline in all the right-wing sort of conservative leaning, Tory leaning, though what's Tory leaning today is Labour supporting. Let's face it, Labour are Tory light. Let's face it. This is a plan to ban sex education for children under 9. Now, when you dig into this, everyone's running with this about, this terrible idea that teachers are teaching our kids about gender fluidity and gender identity. And, the Tories are wanting to this is what I just wanted to pull this story because actually, yes, we can get drawn into these topics and these discussions. I think this is a really important media story. If we were in a media lesson, this is one of those classic stories where you go to it and the headlines made me immediately have a response. I'm thinking, 9-year-olds, that seems a bit young actually for them to be engaging with ideas of gender identity, gender fluidity, and all this kind of stuff. And so the Tories are saying, they're announcing on Thursday that they want to put a complete ban on teaching anything about sex education to children under 9 because they're worried that the classroom is becoming a place where too much fluidity and too much, in a sense, programming and brainwashing is happening. Now, the reason this is a non-story is that most head teachers across the country and teaching unions and teaching organisations have said this is absolute bollocks. We don't actually teach. Most children under the age of 9 don't get taught about sex. And there are many, many kind of provisos for children of different ages for opt-outs and opt-ins and all this kind of stuff. And this is really red meat being thrown at the electorate by the Tories to kind of claim that your children are being kind of brainwashed and steered towards not thinking, having dubious thoughts about any kind of gender fluidity that there is. So this is one of those classic stories, and we're going to see a lot of this in the run up to the election, what I call the culture wars, where, the Tories are going to want to claim, because they've all got very little between them, actually, in terms of policies or any solutions for the running of the country. So what they want to try and do now is they're going to attack wokeism, they're going to attack asylum seekers. We're moving steadily towards this idea that everyone else is the problem, apart from actually those who are running the fucking ship. And let's blame it on everyone else.
Just interesting reading that comment from Francesca. Sex ed is much more than talking about sex itself. I got my period at barely 10 years old, me too, and I was completely blindsided because sex ed was only available after that. It was traumatic. It's interesting you say that because I didn't know really that people weren't taught before 9, and I think they should be. So actually it's gone completely the other way for me. But they are in a world now where all of this is everywhere. So at least have some control that you're teaching them something that is rock solid. So your red meat could backfire.
Well, your red meat could backfire. And also, I just think, just the conversation we've just had there, I think, obviously, there are guidelines, and obviously those guidelines need to be looked at and explored. And I think as much as there's sex education, there needs to be relationship education, and there needs to be a kind of steering and kind of explanation of what is out in the world and what's going on. And, even if you don't sit there saying, I think that what they're trying to create is a story here where there's the suggestion there are teachers saying, if Johnny thinks he's a boy, or if Susie thinks she's a boy, we have to embrace that and accept that and let that happen.
Just
and it's just
knocking
not like
teachers
that.
again. You know what I think would be quite good for that age is if parents have an obligatory session, so that because lots of people that might have been brought up in more conservative households might feel really embarrassed and not actually know how to talk to their children, and that would actually be a really great thing if all parents had to do it. You couldn't make it compulsory, could you? But if you could, I think that would be a really good idea.
Rebecca Leake, who is a head teacher at a school in Ipswich, said to Radio 4 today that sex education typically is not taught in primary schools anyway until year 6. And parents already have a right to withdraw their child if they wish.
So it is
schools are already obliged to provide reasonably precise information to parents as to what the content will be for sex education. This is spurious. This is desperate.
He just makes himself look more and more stupid to me every bloody day.
And XX reiterates what you just said, which is girls need sex ed at 9-ish anyway, because many have started puberty by that age. And you're right. Am I right in thinking that over the years, puberty seems to be happening earlier?
It is happening earlier. There's all sorts of thinking around that. One of that being too much estrogen in the water.
So don't worry, our kids aren't being brainwashed.
That's true.
Now, big story yesterday was. Hang on. God, I did that by mistake.
Well, I've seen it now.
Let's talk about King Charles's portrait.
It's the second time you put it up. Wow.
Now, what do you think, guys?
Wow.
I personally quite like it.
It's funny, isn't it? I absolutely adore the red.
I like his face.
I love it. I love the red around it.
And there's a butterfly.
But what does it say?
What does it say? Well, does it say king?
It says war.
Who likes it? Who doesn't like it?
I mean, aesthetically...
MeTube says it's Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah, I mean, aesthetically...
Roberts, I've got to put that up, Reese, just for the record. People saying he looks like Satan.
Well, because he seems to be rising out of the blood.
Dina, I love it. I like it.
Dina is an art teacher.
It gets a bit dubious around his hands, but then I think even Charles would say his hands get a bit dubious around his hands. So, it's hard to kind of get his hands right, isn't it?
I love it. Aesthetically, it's extremely pleasing to me. I almost don't want his face because I love all this so much. We must show this to our youngest. But
Dante's Inferno, Bonnie Delaney. I love your references, guys.
We're thinking devil, we're thinking blood, we're thinking... So what did they want us to think?
Well, apparently the artist... Yeah, thank you, Sheila, for saying this. It's a nod towards the Welsh Guards. Yeah, a knighthood for the face, off to the tower for the background, some are saying. I think the king said something like, it's very red. I think that's what he said, didn't he? Here we go. The artist said, one is the colour, obviously, which was inspired by the colour of the bright red tunic of the Welsh Guards. And that got me thinking it would be lovely to take the colour and spray it around the picture. Look at it in size there.
He put the colour on afterwards.
Yeah.
I wonder... I don't know whether I want some of the red in the face. I don't know.
The other thing is the butterfly.
Looks like it's stuck on the face.
There's a butterfly to the left. I would love to take full credit for that, but it was actually the subject's idea. And King Charles apparently laughed and said, was it?
Oh.
And the artist said, yes, but sir, we had a conversation at the start about how it would be nice to have a narrative element which referenced your passion for nature and the environment. And you said, why not have a butterfly on my shoulder? They often do that.
Oh, I love that. And it works as a counterpoint to the military.
Yes, the military aspect.
Which I really like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The king joked, well, it was nice to know I was a chrysalis when you first met me. Well, thank you and congratulations. Fantastic.
Very red.
Very red. I like it. Do you like it? You do. I do like it.
That note that you hit is like, what is that? A C sharp or something?
I don't know, darling. It's odd. And finally, Philip Schofield has posted his first Instagram post, and it's of his where is it? I'm just trying to find it. Got all my pictures in the wrong order, and there it is. It's his dog watching Formula One, and he simply says, "I'm pleased that my dog likes Formula One." Lots of people have liked it, but he's disabled the comments. So no one's leaving any comments underneath it. So anyway, but of course the Daily Mail is describing this as this is the start of him resurrecting his TV career.
Well, it's funny because I was just thinking, it's even disabled the comments because you don't want the comments. And people can just be I don't believe in just being really nasty. I mean, but why post anything? What is it the beginning of?
I think it'll be a comeback of sorts. And he's starting with a dog.
Who thinks he will make a comeback?
I do.
Anybody else?
Does anyone think he'll make a comeback? I think he will. I think he will be back. I think with his vape. Cute doggy. Is this next week's caption picture? Good job, Lollipop. Yeah, in fact, I'll make it that. That's a good idea. Philip Schofield, dear heart, he's a TV presenter. He used to present This Morning. Okay, guys. Well, there you go. As Nadia said, leave your comments, any comments that you shared in the live chat today that you would like potentially read out or talked about a bit more.
Specifically around the birth story, because I'd quite like to do a comments just with the birth story. So if we didn't read yours out, or if you want to add something, that would be great. And I'll be doing a Gaza chat a little bit later today. So, have a good day, guys, and welcome. Oh, hang on, we had a birthday, didn't we? Gemma C. It's Gemma C's birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Gemma C. Happy birthday to you. Take care, guys, and something will be landing later. See you later.